Okay, and now share screen. Yep. Uh, okay, do you guys see the screen?
Yep, got it.
Okay, all right. I went over everything with Richard as far as our club procedures. We've got two open categories and two theme categories, which again are geometric shapes. So we're going to start with open B, which that's our intermediate group, and that has 14 photos in it. This is open. Are you ready, Richard?
I'm ready.
Okay. Okay. Stonebridge Open Class B, beautiful flower.
Okay, do you guys do a run through beforehand or do you
If you want me to go through them, I will.
yeah, I mean
But
it helps.
normally we don't. The in or out is usually what we do.
Okay. I mean that's fine. If you wanted me to do it that way, I'll be happy to do it that way.
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't, I always like to kind of see the
Okay, I'll
overall.
go. I'll go through them.
Yeah.
Ornament, Echevarria 2. I think I got it right. American white-winged dove, split Croatia, mom and daughter love, spooky eyes, autumn explosion, beautiful place to dine, Echevarria, a rainbow of alligators lie in wait, just hanging around, beady eyes, the bride and groom, and that's it. Okay.
Alrighty.
Just a question. When I have that screen up, I don't see anybody's windows. Does that sound proper when I'm doing the share 'em as the owner?
Yeah, when you're
Not
yeah, you shouldn't see anything.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So open B, intermediate, beautiful flower.
Okay, so this is it's a very interesting image in a way. It's it's kind of like a flower and then it's on a flower, looks like a like a table cover, and then some more stuff in the background. Um, I'm a little concerned about the processing on this one, just because, I mean, it looks to me like this, whatever effect you used on this, would it would probably be a better image without it. And I'm not against special effects or anything like that. I play with this kind of stuff myself all the time. It's just that when you did it this way, it kind of loses a lot of contrast and a lot of saturation. And I think that is working against your primary subject, which is this really, really beautiful flower. And I think there's a lot of realistic stuff in this image that would really go very well. Just the way the light is or the reflection is shining through the vase and so on. I think this would be really much more interesting as a more realistic image. The other thing I would recommend is rearranging your background. I mean, you could help it by cropping a little bit off the top, because there's a lot of stuff back there that ends up becoming somewhat of a distraction against your main subject, which is the vase and the flower. I would crop that out, but I would also move things around, like there's like some kind of pole there or something like that, and there's something off to the right that's kind of purplish in color. These kind of things tend to be more distractions than actually adding to the image. So I will give this one a 6.
Ornament.
A really nice job of doing this. This is kind of a tough subject. I spent a number of years of my life photographing hardware for commercial refrigerators. and all that stuff is chrome plated, and just being able to get it to reflect the light without being a real problem is really, really challenging. And here you did it, and it looks like you had kind of challenging conditions. I like the fact that it's nice and centered. This is one of those ones where centering your subject really works really well. I really like the way the focus falls off on this. Your main subject, which is this person that almost looks like an alien, in a kind of a thinking pose, but then the back of the hood ornament kind of the focus falls off and fades into that red background. I thought that was really, really, I think that really is a nice choice of depth of field on that one. Um, and then that it's the only thing that I find somewhat of a distraction on this is the fact that you've got that reflection in the red that is just basically white of the sky. And a way around something like that is whenever I do anything like this at a car show, I'll either take a big hat or some type of diffusion device, like something that you can roll up and then open up in top of the subject, and then that diffuses the light, and it really will get rid of a lot of those little things like the little reflecting lights here and there that you can't avoid. Particularly that one big spot with the sky that's reflecting in the background. But still, all in all, just a nicely composed image. So we'll give this one a 7.
Echeverria 2.
This should have been in the geometric shape category, right? Um,
Could have been.
Yeah, this is really nice. I love the colors on these. We've got green with like hints of pink and red. This is really great and everything. Just really nice. It's nice that you have soft lighting on this. It really tends to, these kind of plants. When the light is really bright, the highlights and shadows can end up causing more of an issue because there's so much stuff to these things. But this is really nicely done. Just as a critique thing, when I work with stuff like this, I try to zoom in on areas that are really all about the plant. You've got these like kind of dead patches in here, in the middle and over on the right, and then across the top too. I think working your image a little bit lower or even cropping it a little bit tighter might work. And however you ended up doing this, you have that one red leaf in there. I would move that so that it's in your composition because that is a really nice element that kind of sort of breaks. I don't want to call it monotony, but it breaks the rhythm of the image in a really, really nice way. But all in all, really nicely done, nicely seen, nicely handled in that. So I'll give this one a 7 as well.
American white-winged dove.
Yeah, so I mean, the composition with the bird is really nice. I mean, you've got the birds looking right towards us, kind of like a nice sort of portrait pose for the bird. Not that you got the bird to pose. I mean, the bird was there and did whatever the heck it wanted. But it's really nice the way you caught it that way. The only thing, I mean, I can see with this is you have an extremely distracting background. And I know, again, these birds don't do anything you want them to do. But it's like when you're entering a competition and you're really entering, this is basically you're entering art, then you really got to like kind of look at it. It's not just about an example image of a bird, but you've got to deal with the fact that you have a distracting background there, and maybe to wait till this bird flew and landed somewhere else that was a little bit more open or a little bit more, where there's a background that's not competing with the bird. I mean, the background's almost the same color as the bird too. Plus, it also looks like the bird is kind of out of focus. I don't know if there is something done here to reduce noise or something like that, but it looks to me like the bird is the feathers and everything look kind of soft, yet the overall shape of the bird and the eyes and the beak look nice and sharp. So I would like review how you process this image and kind of so work it out so we can get more detail in the feathers because this bird is, they're not that colorful, but when you see all the detail in the feathers, it really brings out how beautiful these birds are, even though they're not like a macaw or some other really colorful bird. So I'll give this one a 6.
Split, Croatia.
Um, Okay, I'm not sure why you call it split, but I don't really care about titles. I just care about the image. It's a really nice cityscape. Um, and this is like one place that we'd love to go, my wife and I, is it's just a lot of beauty in this country. And I think you caught this scene very, very nicely. And the composition of it is really nice. I may have wanted to have seen a little bit lower where these trees are, but a lot of times with these things, you're avoiding something that you don't want in the image. So I totally get that and everything. But still, there's a nice flow where my eye kind of starts out at that tree on the right and kind of works its way through the cityscape and then up into the mountains. Um, One thing about this image, though, it could use a bit more contrast. And also, I think the color cast is a little bit kind of on the blue side. I mean, that happens when there's a lot of UV light in the air. And, sometimes your camera sensor doesn't pick it up. I'd play with the white balance on this a little bit and kind of get that a little bit better because, the sky is a really nice sky, but it's to me the mountains in the sky look like they're a little bit more yellow or greenish cast to them than there would be under normal circumstances. But anyway, it'd be something to play with. I mean, the overall image is really nice, and anything that I'm suggesting you could probably fix and just kind of like re-looking at the way you process the image again. But all in all, nice, nicely done cityscape. Let's give this a 7.
Richard, by the way, Split is a city in Croatia.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out like what's the split.
Yeah, I just looked it up on the,
Okay,
I
shows you
kind
what
of
I
thought it
know.
might be that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been into very.
Mom and daughter love.
Really nice, kind of beautiful, intimate scene here. I like the fact that you went black and white on this, and everything, and it's just, yeah, it's just the expressions on the face of the kid and the mom is just like really nice and everything. Just that really, really pleasant moment. Um, the one thing, I mean, with the black and white, I mean, the whole overall faces in the image looks a little soft to me. I mean, it looks to me like you had a very narrow depth of field, and your autofocus focused on the arm of the little girl and the shoulder of the mom, because like the tattoo and the lace thing that she's wearing, and they're nice and sharp, but the focus is starting to fall off with the faces, and the faces are really what we want to see. I mean, that's the thing that really needs to be in focus. The other thing that is a little bit of an issue, and I know it's like this is probably a moment, and there's not much you can do to control it, but you have a shoe in the upper left-hand corner, and that is just sort of that almost like makes you it almost sort of I don't want to say it blows the mood, but it almost is like kind of you're really enjoying this little intimate scene, and then all of a sudden you're asking yourself, whose sneaker is that up there, and why is it there, and everything, and uh, that could be you could have probably cropped it out, and even if you cut off the top, just slightly cut off the tops of the heads of the two people here, it probably would still work because it really is all about the faces, and sometimes I know sometimes when I would do images like this, particularly at events or something like that. Sometimes cutting off the tops of the heads really kind of actually brings out the expressions a little bit more. Not that you should do that, but in this case, I think it would work, particularly to get rid of that foot. The other way is to get rid of it in post-processing, which again, being a intermediate group, I don't know what your post skills are, but this might be something to revisit at some point if you don't have those skills after you do develop them. I will give this one a 7 though, because it's a very expressive image.
Spooky eyes.
It's kind of neat. This almost looks like one of those special effects where you mirror the image in Photoshop and everything, but it's obviously not. It looks like it's some kind of a door or it's something maybe a shutter or something like that that's painted. And but it's just really nice. You kind of caught it very, very geometrically, and and I know it is what it is and everything, and but you handled it very well. But there is that one seam of where the two boards are together in the very middle where it's crooked. Um, Now everything else looks extremely symmetrical. I mean, if this was my image, and I'm not telling you you need to do this, but I would have probably straightened out that line to make it straighter. I mean, either the camera's a little crooked, or and you did it because the painting was a little crooked or whatever. But or I would have gotten rid of that in post processing. But still, this is we're talking minor nitpick here. Uh, yeah, it's just sort of that little slant of the line uh, it kind of distracts from the overall symmetry of the image, which is really just amazingly symmetrical. We'll give this a 7.
Autumn explosion.
Definitely exploding autumn. So you can't go wrong with autumn scenes and everything, but you also have to look at, I mean, this is a landscape, right? And there's certain things in a landscape that you have to really, really look out for. And one thing is color. And I don't know if you put saturation slider or you were playing with the color balance or whatever it was that you were doing with this. And I don't really care how people process their images. I just sort of care about the result. And but when I look at the scene, I mean, the trees look very oversaturated, and the sky and the water don't look realistic. I mean, the water has a purple cast to it, and I've seen water in all sorts of states. I've never seen it reflect purple like that. And you can also see somewhat of a purple in the sky as well as some noise up there, which is indicative of overprocessing. The other thing is your shadow details are particularly along the bank of this, whether it's a lake or a river or whatever. Um, it's there's like no shadow detail there, and again, that might have to do with the way you adjusted the contrast, but these kind of things, particularly with modern cameras, it's not that hard to bring that kind of stuff out again with some post processing. But overall, I've got to say it's like the coloring of this just kind of looks just off to me. And whereas there could be some potential here, that kind of totally distracts from the image. The other thing too is when you're photographing trees or a scene like this, it's good to have sort of a subject or some kind of flow to the image. Whether it's like there's one tree that's sort of a standout or something, along the bank, somebody walking or something like that, that tends to act as an anchor point for an image like this. But anyway, look at the way you process this and see if you can kind of bring this back. I'll give this a 6.
Beautiful place to dine.
It is, but yet nobody's dining there. So, no, this is a really nice. I love what I really like about this are the colors. You've got a lot of warm color on the inside, which is, the way the camera is seeing the light. The whatever, incandescent light that's being done here. But then you've got these like beautiful blues and, a little bit of cyan and everything in the background, some purple in the background. So you've got all these cool colors in the background. You've got all these warm colors in the foreground. It really creates a very, very nice scene. I do wish there was a little bit more in this image. I mean, your whatever that thing is in the middle with the with the flowers and the blue jay on it. I kind of wish I could see more of that as opposed to having it being cut off on the right. I mean, I kind of get the composition because you didn't, it that might tend to overwhelm the other stuff in the image, but still, it'd be, I sort of like I'm thinking I wish I could see more of that. But all in all, this is a nicely done image. Maybe just a tad more contrast on something like this, and maybe bring your shadow details out a little bit more, particularly in there's that tree in the background, in the bush in the left on the foreground. The shadows seem to be kind of plugged in a little bit, plugged up a little bit. You may be able to bring that out a little bit more. But yeah, again, nice image. I'll give this a 7.
Echeverria.
So here we have a close up of something we've seen before. I don't know if it's the same photographer or not, but I like this. I like this image a lot. I mean, it's a really nice sort of study of this. And even though I've probably seen this plant photographed many times in my life, not this particular plant, but this style, this type of plant, it just still, when it's done really nicely, it just really, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just nicely done. I like the way you have this done. It's like centered, but not quite centered. I like that there's little bits of the other plants on the corners, which are really kind of nice and everything. It just, and the light, again, the light on this, which is whether it was done at the same time as the other image or not. The light is really nice. You got great highlights on the edges of, if you call these things petals or not, I have no idea, but it just, and then it sort of fades into these shadows. I think it's really nicely done in that way. My only suggestion on this would be to maybe a slight vignette on the corners where you kind of darken it a little bit. It would really draw your attention more into the center of the image. But all in all, very, very nicely done. We'll go 7 on this.
A rainbow of alligators lie in wait.
Um, so here's one that is, it's like a, when I was talking about unrealistic colors with the landscape, well, this obviously is not a landscape. This obviously is a made image. Whether, I doubt if all these alligators were there or not. It looks like they were placed there and everything, and then you made them colorful. So it's almost kind of like I don't know, it's a very festive looking scene with things that probably want to eat you. Um, so it's kind of interesting the way you've done it. Now, there are some things that I've got to bring out. When you do stuff like this, you really got to do it well. And so when I look at the alligators, most of them look like they're nicely done. They sort of fit into the water. But then when I look at the white one, the edges of the white one, which is the one at the top, are very sharp. And that one actually looks like it was placed there. Um, the other thing, it also doesn't. I mean, if you look at some of the other ones, it looks like you can see a reflection, but there's not ones on the white one. And then when you look at the water itself, here's where, like, when you do this kind of stuff, you got to be really, really, really careful. And that is, if you look, there's these like vertical little white lines. There's like 5 of them on the right, and there's another one on the left in front of the green alligator. Those kind of things I'm not sure why that happened, but those are kind of things that you need to fix when you do something like this. And yeah, it's like it's fun to do this kind of stuff, and this is really, really a great idea. But it really, even though it's not a realistic image, it still needs to kind of look realistic to make it look, more artistic and everything. So I would say, you know, go back to the drawing board with this one and sort of work it a little bit more because it is definitely an interesting subject. But with all those kind of technical flaws in there, I'm going to have to give this one a 6.
Just hanging around.
Um, Nice, great subject. These I love praying mantises. I'll tell you, they're really interesting creatures, and part of their survival mechanism is they are extremely aggressive. I mean, I've seen videos of them attacking birds. There's one great video of it even attacking a bulldozer. It's just like, they're just really a very, very interesting creatures. Um, and so this is nice. Yeah, it's nice subject. However, you've got the man is very centered in the image. There's a lot of I know it's on a flower, but you've got like it looks like it's a porch roof or something like that. And what's below where you see the windows of below and then you see outside, it's like totally kind of a distraction. This would work well with a nicer crop. And also, again, I'm not sure if this is like a special effect that you're doing because the flower is kind of soft, the mantis is kind of soft, but yeah, it looks like the eyes of the mantis are kind of sharp. So this again, if you're doing some kind of special effect here and you're photographing something realistic, it doesn't it doesn't always work. And in this case, I don't think it's working very well for you here. But I'd say with this, if you can, rethink your processing and then maybe rethink the crop. I think you have something here with this incredible insect. I'm going to give this a 6.
Beady eyes.
Um, okay, neat idea here with this. Yeah, it's I don't know like what this is part of. I mean, I know a lot of times when you look at stuff like this, it's like you as a judge you got to look at am I looking at a photograph of somebody else's art, or am I looking at, something where they took a piece of art and made it their own? And I gotta say, in this case, I think you did. I mean, I'm sure there's more to this than just meets the eye. I mean, just the way you've cropped it, I'm sure there's like more of the face of whatever this creature is and everything. But when you cropped it like that, you sort of, again, made it your own, and it kind of made it more, even though it's obviously a creature, got an eyes and mouth and ears and nose and all that stuff. It still almost is also an abstract because the colors kind of work in a very abstract pattern as well and everything. It's almost like you could knock this image out of focus and it would still work because the color scheme is just so nice. Um, yeah, really, yeah, interesting idea, and again, nice job of taking somebody else's art or craft and sort of making it your own. So we'll give this a 7.
The bride and groom.
Um, it almost looks like the bride is like, what do you mean you're taking my picture? It's like she almost looks like a it's kind of like shocking, as opposed to like all of a sudden like she saw like her old boyfriend or something like that. It's just she looks like all of a sudden, like kind of shocked in this image, which kind of is an interesting approach to a bridal scene like this. I have to say though, I mean the entire image is I don't know if it's a slow shutter speed or whatever, but your main subject, which is the bride and then the groom that or whoever she's dancing with is they're very soft. It almost looks like there's like a motion blur there because again when I'm looking I see the chairs are nice and sharp but that person isn't. And then the other thing is, and believe me, I used to do weddings years ago, and I used to do it with film, so I didn't have the option of retouching anything. Is that you have to look out for things like one big giant distraction on this is the guy on the left who you can see his shoulder and his arm and just a little bit of his head. um, that would be kind of in an image like this be for you to move to the right a little bit so that he's either in the image completely or out of the image completely is kind of like kind of makes this more of a journalistic shot, and it's not really in this particular scene journalistic. But the main thing is your subjects being soft and out of focus like that is really kind of a technical issue on that, and we'll have to give this one a 6.
Okay, we've got 8 photos, 7. I'm going to go through them again and ask you to give them a 7, 8, or 9 based on NJFCC guidelines. Okay.
Yep.
And so I just want to double check if there's anybody else that was trying to get in, and I don't see that. Okay. Okay, open B, ornament.
Okay, I will give this one a 7.
Echeverria 2.
We'll go 8 on this one.
Split Croatia.
Um, I will go. I'll go 8 on this. It's a good composition.
Mom and daughter love.
I'm going to go 7 on this.
Spooky eyes.
Uh, go 8.
Beautiful place to dine.
Um, do a 7 on this one.
Echeverria.
Uh,
I'm not sure if I'm
go 8
saying
on
it.
there.
Eight.
Yep.
You said eight, Richard?
Yeah, I did.
Beady eyes.
And we'll go 8 on this one.
Okay, we've got five eights. Let me just double check. Um, okay, so we get a first, second, and third out of these. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Can you show them all at once? Like his
yes,
thumbnails?
yes, I believe I do that with a V. Okay,
There we
but
go.
I will go. Let me go through them to
All
enlarge
right, no,
scale.
yeah, you don't need to go through them.
Okay.
So
Oh, all right.
third place is going to be the that one,
This
BDI.
one.
Yep, third
This
place.
is third place.
Yep.
Okay, so let me do that. Seven. Echeverria two.
Okay, and then
Speculation.
Spooky Eyes will be second place.
Spooky Eyes. This one is second place. Okay, we've got
The
Echeverria.
one between them will be first.
This one.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So first place, second place. Third. Okay, now I go to review contest. Get you guys out of the way. Review contest. Okay, open, intermediate B. Third place is BDI's Ed Edelson. Second place is Spooky Eyes Ed Edelson. The eyes are on you, Ed.
The eyes
First
have it.
place is Echeverria Ed Edelson. Congratulations, Ed. You swept the
Swept
board
the
there.
You swept the competition, and I will tell you there was no money exchange between Ed and I. Maybe
Very
there should have
nice.
been. Maybe there should have been. Well
Good
done, Ed.
job, Ed.
Well done.
Okay, so now we've got open, um, advanced, and we've got 16 photos, and this is open. You ready, Richard?
Sure.
Okay. Open A. You want me to go through them all? Sky High,
Yeah, if it's not a problem.
your Cape Marguerite Calm, Safest Fence in Patagonia, Bike in the Eye, Guinness on Tap, Brooklyn Nature Walk, Rose Feeling, Graffiti in Santiago, Cute French Market, Nest Building, Pointed, Peacock Echeverria, Repeat Patterns in Nature, Aster in a Field, Gladiolus Outgoing, Panorama Landscape in Patagonia. Okay,
All
and to
righty.
now in or out. Open A, Sky High.
Okay, interesting image of the the uh the building here. It's I like it's kind of an interesting idea that you've got going here where you've got the building and then you've got this foreground element which is the building's very geometric and very lined up really nicely with it's like just that and then you've got this like kind of randomness of what's going on the street with the street lamp and this whatever else is attached to it. I think it's an interesting study in that way. Um, I will say that sometimes when you work on when you're processing this, and particularly if you're darkening your sky, is you got to be aware of things like there's like halos that can form around your subjects, and here the building has a halo around it, and that's something that is relatively easily fixed in post in Photoshop using clone stamp tool in the darken mode. But yeah, with that, and I'm looking at, it, I see little halos around some of the stuff in the foreground item as well. And gotta like, particularly this is the the advanced group. I gotta kind of be concerned about that. And then overall too, I think the composition could have been a little. I love the idea of it, but I think it could have been composed a little bit more nicely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff there, and if you've done other things, if you did more than one photograph here, which I hope you did, you might find something that might work, might have a little bit more of a flow to it than this one does. We'll go 6 on this.
Cape Marguerite, Calm.
Um, Really interesting idea for a composition on this. Usually you see these when you see an individual flower like this, you see it sort of off on the on a diagonal or something like that because diagonal lines are great. Um, are great. What do you call it? Compositional elements. But here you got this thing coming in out of the side, and it works really nicely because there's a very powerful triangular shape to this thing. I love the fact that there's like little water drops on there and everything, and it's interesting what you did with the background. I mean, I'm assuming, when I first saw it, I go, "Oh, that must be like the screen resolution or something like that." But it actually looks like you put some kind of a background that doesn't look natural, or else you put a texture back there or whatever. I mean, again, I don't care how you did it. I just care what you did, and the result. And it works. It works. It's like normally I see stuff like this, and even when I play around with stuff like this, I never get it to the point where I like it, and yet I like this, and I think it's because the colors are just sort of almost perfectly balanced. One little suggestion on this, I think you could probably have cropped a little off the top on this thing, but again, that's just my opinion as opposed to whether it will make it like, a super amazing image or not. It's just a suggestion to kind of play with. But other than that, really nicely done. We'll go 7 on this.
Safest fence in Patagonia.
I'll take your word for that. But it's interesting. I like how you have like locks on the locks and everything. It's just really kind of an interesting idea here. Um, Nicely done. I like the on the left that kind of sort of bent thing, whatever that fence post is or whatever, and then it has like the little sticker on it. I mean, I think that all that stuff is really nicely placed and it works really well color wise. It's got kind of a warm reflective color on it. And then you've got the blue water, which makes it work really neat. The randomness of the locks just really kind of work, because it's not only just random placement, but the random color. You've got looks like locks that were just placed there recently and other locks that have been there for a long time. That's kind of neat and everything. I would say sort of like the one thing though, this is another one where like wearing a hat and something like that and on a sunny day, putting it over top to kind of you've got like the where everything's in shadow looks really nice and where everything's really bright there's kind of a bright it's kind of a bright highlight going through the top rail of this fence and a little bit on the bottom and everything. I would kind of have worked that a little bit because it tends to kind of draw my eye into that as opposed to wandering around the locks. But still, I mean, overall, yeah, a great idea for an image and nicely done. And, kind of bold in a competition to kind of just add something that's just a bunch of locks hanging on a fence. But it's still, I think you saw something really nice here. So we'll go 7 on this.
Bike in the Eye.
Um, Really neat kind of idea on this one. The idea that you have the bicyclist and, whether you were waiting for this and just took an individual image or, whether you took a bunch of them and you got like 5 or 6 of these of the cyclists going through here like that. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's a neat idea on this one. I like that the cyclist isn't exactly centered. Um, that would have been like the instinct, but I think because you know, the hole, the window, or whatever you want to call it, that she is in, it's not symmetrical, so therefore her not being symmetrical kind of works. And the only real issue with this is it looks like your sculpture is a little soft, as if you know, I mean, you had a limited depth of field because you're shooting at a fast shutter speed, and you kind of went for the cyclist, which was a good idea. But this would have been kind of a neat idea to do that, and then take another image and focus with the other thing in focus, the sculpture in focus, and then kind of blend the two together in Photoshop to make it work. But anyway, you know, all in all, very interesting idea, great composition. So we'll go 7 on this.
Guinness on tap.
I like this a lot. I think it's great what you did with the background. It's out of focus enough that it's not a distraction, but you can still see what it is. I actually like the fact that there's a guy back there, you know, all the way in the background there. And then you got the three things of Guinness, and you know, then the beer coming down. And then the other thing that really kind of makes this cool is the hand holding the one, um, you know, the one mug of beer, which is just sort of, it almost looks like it could be a great advertisement for Guinness. Although, if this was an advertisement for Guinness, rotating that first glass so that you can see the word Guinness would be probably required. You know, on this image, again, I mean, I love this image a lot, but the fact that you don't, you either, I would prefer to have seen the word Guinness or not seen anything at all. So if this, I would recommend, I mean, if I actually made this image, I would have said, hey, do you mind if I turn this glass? And I would have probably turned it so that nothing was, you know, none of the words were visible or all the words were visible. But you could also in post-processing get rid of that pretty easily too if you're having, you know, if you decide you want to do something like that. But all in all, great image, very interesting and great, very well handled. We'll go 7 on this.
Brooklyn Nature Walk.
Um, Neat idea. I mean, I like the reflection and everything, and the idea that, you know, the idea of nature walk, which is like the only nature in this image is whatever this green leaf is in this window. So it's really not, you know, it's really not a nature walk and everything, but it's a, but the idea of it, I mean, it's got a great title for what this is. Um, the only thing that I would say with this is there's a lot of stuff going on compositionally here, and it's hard to kind of focus on something. I mean, I focus on the leaf, but then it's like the, you know, there's like sort of like a double image of the lady leading the kids, you know, whether it's like two panes of glass or, you know, or whatever it is. It would be nice if the reflection of the kids and the woman were sharper, and the woman who's leading the children were not, you know, it's a little bit more of her in the frame where she's like literally starting to get cut off from the frame as well. So that would be, again, you know, whether you could have done this in a way that you don't have that double reflection, I think would have made this image much better. The colors are interesting too with the greens and the reds as well, but we'll go 6 on this.
Rose Feeling.
Um, nice, nice study on this rose. It's very simple. You know, a lot of times you see rose pictures of roses like they're very complicated and everything. I don't know if this variety is, you know, a little less, you know, has fewer petals or whatever, but it's nicely handled. Again, another, I'm assuming it's the same photographer that we saw before with that background. Um, Nicely placed on the background. And again, the idea of the fact that the background is sort of a texture is it works really well because the colors balance really well. Whereas the other one, sort of the colors sort of worked into, you know, the yellow of the flower kind of worked into the background colors. Here it's more like a contrast, and it's a nice contrast. You know, there's a lot of detail in the flower. There's like the highlights and shadows are really handled very nicely, and then putting it against a background like that is very nice. We'll go with a 7 on this one.
Graffiti in Santiago.
So this is really nicely done image, and I want to say it's like street photography, but it's really not necessarily, because it's the you think of street photography, you think of people out on the street and everything, but obviously you saw this somewhere and you decided to make an image. And I think it's really nice the composition of this, the way you have everything off to the side, and then you've got all this like kind of deterioration below the column with the graffiti, and then everything else you can just kind of see this is really old thing, and even the graffiti looks kind of old, and so on. And it's just really just a nicely handled scene, and the decision to go black and white on this one kind of turns it into a timeless image. I mean, this could have been photographed 100 years ago, it could have been photographed yesterday, and it all really kind of works. And it that whole timeless quality, along with the deterioration, really just is nice. And if you look, you see like shadow detail even in the darkest shadows, and you see a lot of detail even in the brightest highlights. So we'll go 7 on this.
Cute French market.
Um, Nice scene here. It just really it's a fairly complicated scene, but I think overall it's a good attempt at the composition for this. Um, my recommendation would be, and I don't know if you crop this image, it kind of looks like from the format it was cropped, is that if you had a little bit more on the sides, particularly to the left of that one door, all the way on the left. I mean, beautiful wooden door. It's kind of a little close to the edge. I mean, if you matted this, you'd probably cover over the door a little bit. And the same thing with the plant on the right, that tree or vine or whatever it is. Um, it's kind of neat that it's there, but I kind of wish I saw more of it. And again, I don't know, maybe there's something there that you didn't want us to see because it was a distraction or not. Still, but I think that would really kind of give you more of a sense of place and a little less like kind of like we're a little too close to this. But all in all, it's still very nicely done for as complicated as a scene as this is. I mean, if you look at all the stuff in here, it just there's a lot of stuff, but yet it's not overwhelming. The clutter isn't overwhelming. If anything, it's very well placed. So, well, we'll go 7 on this.
Nest building.
Um, Great action shot of this osprey making its nest. I mean, just these like little scenes that you can get where you don't have the bird just there. I mean, the bird's actually doing something, and here it's making a nest, and they're gonna lay eggs and raise babies and all that other stuff. So it's really neat scene. I like the idea that it is, even though it's hard photographing on a bright day like this, but yet you handled the light pretty nicely. I mean, the bird is a little, some of the highlights on the birds are a bit on the bird is a little bit on the bright side, particularly on the edge of the wing, the tail, and just the top of the head, but still not like totally burned out, but it's something that, playing with contrast and everything, just a touch might, might kind of help that a little bit. But all in all, it's just a neat to see these osprey because of the way they're colored on the against the blue background. It kind of works really well. But definitely nice, definitely a nice capture here. So we'll go 7 on this.
Pointed.
Um, this is really neat. I love this because I have no idea what it is. Okay, I don't know if it's on a car, if it almost looks like a grill, but it's one of those things where I don't know what it is, but I don't care what it is. I really like it. I like the fact that you went really dark on this, but yet you have these highlights. It has this like really kind of, I don't know, it really gives a lot of depth to it. And even though they were losing some of the shadow detail, on those bars, those 4 bars that are coming in from a diagonal. It doesn't really matter. You know what they are, or you maybe don't know what they are, but you know that they're cylinders. And there's just enough there. But the black kind of all, it's sort of like it becomes a composition built out of the highlights here, as well as the design of this. But it's a really interestingly done image. And again, it's like have no idea what it is, but in another sense, it's like I outside of my curiosity, I don't really care. It's just really just a beautifully done image. We'll go 7 on this.
Peacock Echeverria.
Really nicely done. You know, when you do these things, particularly if with Photo Contest Pro, which has a black background, I would never ding anybody for this, so it's just a suggestion. It's always good to put like a little stroke around your image, so I kind of know where it ends. I mean, I have an idea, but it's like it almost looks like it goes all the way out to the edge of my monitor. But on the same accord, it's even if it did, it still works because it is it's a very nice flower and it's almost like it's I heard one time we had a judge at our club and his thing on flowers was like the flower either needs to be completely alive or it needs to be completely dead. Anything in between is like not, forget about it, don't even enter it. I totally 100% disagree with that. And what I like here is that you can see the buds, closer to the base of the stem are starting to die off, but yet you have the buds like in their full feature towards the middle, and then at the very end they're just starting to bud, and you see the life cycle of this plant, and that really to me is magical. Because that's what it is. I mean, I photograph a lot of wildflowers, and that's like you're constantly dealing with that. And it's almost like this is a beautiful flower, but it's also a story as well. And it's not often that you can, sort of work a story into a floral image like this. So, again, nicely done, and we'll definitely go 7 on this one.
Repeat patterns in nature.
Um, It's interesting that you got an image this nice on with the light that you had to work with. It looks like you're working with, I don't know, maybe, I mean, it's probably morning light, but, um, or afternoon light. I mean, it's hard to tell. I don't know which direction you're facing, but just looking at the shadows, the sun looks very low in the sky. If you look at the shadow, it's shadows in the mountains and everything. So you're kind of catching like sort of either just before or just after the golden hours. But yet, I mean, it works. I mean, there's not, um, even though there's kind of contrasting shadows in this. They're handled very nicely, and it looks, it's one of these scenes where maybe it's not the epic sunrise, and all that stuff, and the mist on the water and all that stuff, but it's still nicely done, and it's a beautiful image to look at. And yeah, you may be able to crop a tiny bit off of the sky, maybe, but again, it works the way it is. And it's got a nice flow to it too. You kind of like sort of work your way across the foreground and then into the background where the mountains are. It's almost like sort of a curve that's not really an intentional curve, but it's really nice. And I'm finding my eye wandering around the image and not escaping the image. So very nicely done. We'll go 7 on this.
Aster in a field.
Um, Again, okay, so photographing wildflowers, it's great. I'm a big fan of photographing wildflowers, and because you're really dealing a lot with the issues that you have where you're not arranging something or it's not in a cultivated garden where somebody's planned this whole thing out. This is just sort of nature being nature, and I like this image a lot. I mean, you've got the aster kind of the one that's blooming, and obviously it's not perfect because it's a wildflower and everything. And that's fine, because it is. I like that. I like the bud next to it, and then the other bud behind it. It kind of gives you a trio of things, and then it kind of goes off. Your out of focus background is really nice. We can still see that there's asters back there, and even though they're the same color as your foreground, you can still see the definition between your foreground flowers and your background flowers, which is again nicely done. And those little patches of color are great. Um, and again, even like on the lower right, you kind of see some more of what's going on with the flower, or the the plant that this flower is growing on, which kind of is an interesting little anchor in the corner. It almost looks like little, kind of snakes coming up or something. But it's nicely done. I'm glad you kept that in there. My only little thing on this is your foreground petals on your main aster are kind of soft. They're out of focus. Your focus kind of starts at the base of the flower and then kind of works its way through. And I think a little bit more depth of field. This is one of those things where selective focus stacking could really work on something, on an image like this. But all in all, yes, again, still nicely done. And again, working in the field with wildflowers, working with the light that you had to work with, I think you've done a really, really nice job here. So we'll go 7.
Gladiolus outgoing.
Nice. I mean, I like that you went all the way on this. So it's almost, when you do this, I always think of these not really as florals, but I think of them more as sort of abstracts. And compositionally, it's really nice. I like the way, I mean, the end point of this image or where you're drawing us to is into the flower itself. And the fact that you have it kind of off-centered and up towards the top just slightly works really good. It's like wherever your eye enters the image, it ends up there. And that's really, I think, nicely done with this. I think with this image, just a tad more contrast and a tad more saturation would really, really bring this to life, particularly the water drops and everything. But all in all, nicely done. What you want in focus is in focus, and there's really nothing to distract you from the visual flow of this image. So really, just nicely done. We'll definitely go 7 on this.
Panorama landscape in Patagonia.
Um, it's interesting because you see a lot of images of Patagonia, and they're like they really focus on the mountains. And here you're not really focusing on the mountains at all. It's kind of the landscape. I mean, the mountains are all the way they're in the image, but they're kind of almost barely visible. Again, not the best time of day to photograph, but the clouds in the sky and everything kind of make it a nice scene and everything. The visual flow of this is kind of nice with the way the river is and everything. Um, it does look kind of, I'm not sure whether it's a wide angle or what, but there's like a bow to the image. If you look at the horizon line just below where the mountains are, there's like a curve. And I think that's not the way the landscape is. And if it is, I apologize. But it looks to me like that's like a plane that goes into the mountains, and that part should be flat. And that's something that, again, there's a million ways to fix that in Photoshop and even in Lightroom. Um, but I think if that's the case, that, I mean, if you shot this with a super wide angle lens, which it looks like you did, that might be, if the lens is pointing down a little bit, you might get that bow there. But again, it's something that can be fixed. But still, nice scene. Let's go 7 on this.
Okay, well, you haven't knocked out much. So, all right. So
Like I said,
let's
it's
go.
hard.
We
Yeah, it's
got
hard not to do so good.
we have 14 scores of 7, so 7, 8, or 9 on these. Okay. Open A,
Okay, go
Cape
9.
Margarita Com.
Yeah, go 9 on this.
Safest fence in Patagonia.
Go 7.
Bike in the eye.
Um, I'm gonna go 7 on this. If the sculpture was more in focus, it would definitely be go higher.
Guinness on tap.
Um, I'll give this an 8.
Rose feeling.
We'll go 8 on this one.
Graffiti in Santiago.
9.
Cute French market.
Go 7.
Nest building.
8.
Pointed.
9.
Peacock Echeverria.
Um, I'm gonna go 9 on this.
Repeat patterns in nature.
8.
Aster in a field.
Uh, gonna go. I'm gonna go 7.
Gladiolus outgoing.
8
Panorama landscape in Patagonia.
and 7 on this.
Okay, we've got four nines. You have to pick a first, second, and third out of these.
Okay.
All right, hold on. And I'll go through them. Cape Marguerite Calm,
Okay. So I got
Graffiti,
it.
and
So
you
yeah,
got
yeah.
it? All
So
right.
yeah, yeah. So the first flower, the yellow flower, that'll be third place.
This is third. Okay.
Whatever the third image is, whatever that with the black and white pointed,
Pointed.
that'll be second.
And it's
And the
between
graffiti will
this.
be yeah, yeah,
This.
yeah, that'll be first.
Okay. Okay. So in Ward, first place. Simon Ward, second place. Simon Ward, third place. And this one is a 9, so Simon. Okay, review contest. I gotta get all you guys out. Okay, open A category. Honorable mention, Dave Cohen, Peacock Echeverria. Nice going. Beautiful shot. Third place, Dave Cohen, Cape Marguerite Calm. Nice shot, Dave. Second place, Dan Sudberg, Pointed. Nice going, Dan. First place, Sandy Flickstein, Graffiti in Santiago. Very nice, Sandy. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of great images. That's like one where I could score that very differently if I did this tomorrow. I mean, there's just a lot of really good stuff there.
Good to hear. All right. So now we go to, um, if I can find it, geometric shapes. This will be the intermediate category. And we have 16 images here. Geometric shapes, intermediate B, circles and triangles.
Okay. Yeah, I can just I don't need to see the run through, so I'll just go through this. So
Oh, I'm
this,
sorry. Do you want me to do it? I'll do it.
if you don't mind, I mean, I
No,
don't,
no, I just forgot. Circles and triangles, geometric shapes, dining room light, triangles, diamonds, Princeton Circle of Knowledge, Stonehenge, MG circles and hexagons, Desert Bridge, going into the second loop, cubes, Princeton abstract shape, X marks the spot, big round wheel and circular gauges, blocks, view of a highway from plane or veins of a leaf, ovals. Okay.
all righty.
Okay. Geometric shapes, intermediate B, circles and triangles.
Okay, this is nicely done. I mean, compositionally, it's great because it's not right in the center. I mean, it's I like the there's almost like a triangle, which is the frame of whatever this thing is. I guess I don't know if it's a carnival ride or what. I guess and everything. The only real kind of unfortunate thing about this is the you've got the there's like a bush or a tree or something that's kind of cutting that off on the right, lower right. And and I know it's like a totally different composition, but if you photograph this from the other side or maybe moved a little bit, I think you would have ended up a little bit better of an image. And it's you're also kind of cutting it off at the bottom. Again, I would like nice to have seen a little bit more so that there's like a little space between the bottom of your circle and the bottom of the image. But still, I mean, overall, yeah, nicely done, nicely seen, and definitely meets the category. So we'll go 7 on this.
Geometric shapes, dining room light.
Um, Neat idea. I mean, I like the way it works on this. I mean, the idea of where you're going, you've got the light, and then you've got the light coming through the window, which is your shadows and everything. Um, the only thing with this, it's almost like there's two images going here. You've got the lights, and then you got the reflection or the shadow or on the wall. I almost wish actually I just saw the wall there. I mean, what's on the wall, or just a some type of composition done with the lamp or chandelier. But still, I mean, what's going on the wall there is just really, really interesting, and definitely like geometry gone crazy with that. I mean, and then the one thing you've got like half this image is just the ceiling, and and then the chain that's hanging the chandelier, and that's kind of doesn't do anything for your image, and there's just so much of it. This would be kind of if this is your home and you get to kind of see this on a daily basis, I would explore doing this image over again in a different way. We'll go 6 on this.
Triangles.
Um, Definitely. I was wondering, like, when I saw the geometric shape, if there's going to be a watermelon in it somehow in this, but and now you make me want to get one. But it's neat. I like the arrangement of it. It's neat. I mean, one thing cool about photographing watermelons is they're kind of self-contained color balance, because you've got, the watermelon is red, but yet the outer part is green, so you've got like a nice mix of warm and cool color, and kind of contrasting color. And this arrangement, I don't know if you saw this somewhere, or at a party, or whether you fussed with this for several hours to get it right. I mean, again, I don't really care. It's kind of neat. Um, I would almost like wish for the days of the seeded watermelons, because usually when there were seeds in there, it added a little bit more something into the image to kind of give it, something else in it. But now we all buy the seedless ones because we don't like spitting the seeds out. Um, but it's still neat. I mean, nicely done. Really kind of a neat image. This is one of those ones where it's hanging on the wall. You'd want to look at it for a while, because even though there's one subject, it's sort of it's just very, very nicely arranged. We'll go 7 on this.
Diamonds.
Definitely diamonds, a very interesting kind of architectural abstract. Um, I kind of like the way you have this. I mean, going black and white on this was really good. I think color might add a level of distraction and busyness that probably would not work for this. Um, I mean, I don't know what building this is, or what you were working with, but I like the idea that you kind of went black and white on it. Um, it's neat. It's a nicely designed. It's a very, very, very busy composition, but it's arranged in a way that's not difficult to look at. Just a couple little things. When if you're, if this is kind of a thing you want to pursue with your photography, is sometimes there's little things that make a big difference. And when I look at this, I see there's that one little bar in the upper left-hand corner that could have been cropped out or moved out or something like that. And the same thing on the right, where you have a corner piece up in the upper right, where it comes down, and it's just a little bit of a triangle there, a little either more of that or less of that. Those are the kind of things that, like, when you're wandering around, they're kind of, I call them escape routes. Whereas your eyes wandering around, it's like looks there, and then all of a sudden your eyes out of the image. As a photographer, your composition, you want to trap the eye in the image, and you've done a very good job here. But those are those two little things that could make a difference. Um, sometimes just darkening them, sometimes cropping them out, but it's a thing to play with. But overall, nicely done. We'll go 7.
Princeton Circle of Knowledge.
Um, it's I mean, this is a beautiful piece of architectural element, and the stained glass is just really, really nice and everything. However, with an image like this, photographing it more head on would be better, and also seeing more of it. I mean, you're cutting off. I mean, I know you're kind of going for the circles in the middle, but you've got those the details like the two people on either side of the circle on the bottom. You've also got those round things, those round architectural elements that are about 2/3 of the way up. And then you're also photographing under very, very harsh lights, and you've got some very, very dark, contrasty shadows up at the top. But this would be a good thing to go and photograph more head on, photograph it on a day where the light, this is either in shadow or you don't have as much shadow on the image and so on, because it is a really interesting thing to see, but we need to kind of see more of it in a sense of place as well. So I'm going to go 6 on this.
Stonehenge.
Yeah, definitely geometric in its own way. Stonehenge. Um, nice. I mean, I like the just with this, you've got like a nice cloudy day, and you got green grass, and then the structures. Those two little rocks in the foreground kind of really make a nice anchor point, and overall just nicely done, and sort of seeing the part of Stonehenge as opposed to the whole of Stonehenge. Um, I would say your image on the left would be nice if there's a little bit more there. That one piece of stone is kind of right up on the edge of your image where you've got that stroke around the image. So it'd be nice if it was just a little bit more there, a little bit more breathing space there. But other than that, nicely done, and you've got great light because it was cloudy and so on. So we'll go 7 on this.
MG circles and hexagons.
Um, nicely done here. I mean, it's definitely you're taking the car and broken it down to its geometric shapes. And I like this. I like the fact that you went very low with your camera angle here. So it's almost like, I mean, if you didn't see the tires, you almost wouldn't know this was a car almost, other than, of course, the MG logo. But yeah, it's neat. Now, the one thing about something like this, if you notice, you're not totally head on with this, and it would you're almost like a little bit to the right, and with this, just that sort of symmetry of balance would have been better if you just moved a little bit to the left and lined up the grill of the car with the windshield a little bit more. I don't know if you did it this way because you like whatever that circle is in the windshield, you wanted that in your image or not. And then also, I mean, obviously the car's parked there and there's not much you can do about it other than steal the keys and move it. But your background is somewhat of there's a lot of distraction going on in the background there. And that would be, darkening that again, if the skill set's there, darkening that a little bit or even blurring it, in post processing, or if you photograph this again, photographing with a lower depth of field, would be, would really kind of help remove some of that distraction. But still, all in all, really nicely done, and definitely, interestingly seen. So we'll go 7 on this.
Desert Bridge.
Yeah, so it's not, I mean, definitely there's a lot of geometry in here and everything. But here's one where the subject or the intent, which is the geometric shapes, are kind of lost in the sunset or sunrise, whatever you have here. Um, and it really, the image to me is more about the sunrise and sunset, or sunset, as opposed to the shapes of the bridge. Um, And with that, and I also would like to see a little bit more of whatever is in the. It's all dark. The whatever in silhouette in the foreground there at the bottom. It might sort of give it more of a sense of place if you could bring that detail out as far as what this is, and it might help um, not overwhelm the beauty of the color in the background. Also, cropping down from the top would also help too, because then it would kind of minimize more of the sky. But all in all, I've got to say, this is kind of like a borderline. It definitely meets the topic, but in this case, I think the thing that's not the topic is more of the subject than the topic is. So we'll go 6 on this.
Going into the second loop.
Um, kind of, definitely really interesting. I mean, I like I don't know if that's the first loop in the background there, but I like the fact that you have the two loops there. Um, you could almost crop out that horizontal thing and just make it about the loops with the clouds in the background. I think it would be really interesting with that. I also kind of sort of wonder about again the color on this is the sky is kind of a pale blue and everything, and there's some hot spots in the clouds. I think this is all rethinking the post processing on this might work. I mean, this might actually work good as a black and white too. But I would say, cropping out the bottom, really rethinking the coloring of this image, and trying to get there a little more detail in the hot spots of the clouds. Because even though this is all about the shapes of the ride, it is also, the clouds are dominant in this image. So it's kind of like those hot spots end up distracting you away from that where my eye wants to go, which is to flow around the shapes of this ride and so on. Um, so I'm gonna go 6 on this.
Cubes.
Definitely cubes and square and rectangles and all that kind of stuff. Um, it's I mean, I like the color too. I mean, the very colorful houses and so on, which are kind of really add to kind of adding. I mean, it adds actually even more cubes and rectangles and squares and all that stuff, which is kind of interesting. There's two things with this image though. One is it looks kind of crooked where I mean when you do architectural work, you want to have your vertical lines to be straight up and down, and here they're kind of leaning at an angle. It's almost as if your camera was at an angle. And then also because this is all about geometric shapes, um, the roof lines are just they kind of sort of you have all this beautiful kind of symmetry and organization in the front walls of the houses. However, once you get to the roofs, it's all sort of just random shapes and they kind of fall apart. And then you've got those antenna on the roofs, which are really just kind of, that kind of blows the whole thing. There's also a couple of Oh, wait a minute. That's on my monitor. You have like a couple of sensor spots on this image too, as well. If you look at the middle top, there's a sensor spot, and there's one also on the upper right-hand corner. And there's a few others here or there. Actually, there's quite a few in the sky. So those are the kind of things you really want to clean up before you present an image like this. But I would work, you can either rotate this image if it's the only one you have, kind of make it more straight up and down and maybe crop out uh, a chunk of the roofs here. I think you might have a very interesting kind of architectural abstract. So I'm going to go 6 on this.
Princeton abstract shape.
Okay, so we have the abstract shape again. Appeared in the last version here. So here it's I mean it's a really neat sculpture and all that, and I'm gonna want to have to track this thing down. I haven't been to Princeton in a while. It's a really interestingly done thing, but I can't help but wonder whether the people are kind of um, they're kind of they're a distraction. They become more of the subject And whereas there is, there's definitely geometric shape here and everything and so on. It still is like, I mean, you got really not great light, with the shadow in the foreground on the lower right. Even the shadows on the people, and then you get the people in the background and everything, and it just really kind of, yeah. Again, this would be a neat scene without so many distractions in it. So I'm gonna go 6 on this.
X marks the spot.
Um, Really neat. I mean, this is, I guess, hand carved, so it's that you can't go perfect symmetry on this because you can see those blue circles are not quite exactly the same and everything, and even the way the cut of the diamond in the middle is not exact, and so on. My wife does quilting, and that happens all the time. With that, I mean, this is like literally something she would quilt, and and everything. But it's kind of neat. I like the fact that the symmetry is broken up by um, the fact that this thing is deteriorating. So it's almost like perfect symmetry, but without perfect symmetry. And but even the cracks and the peeling paint and everything, they have sort of their own sort of anti-symmetry on this, which is kind of neat. And the whole thing sort of works really nicely together. The thing with this, I think a little more contrast and maybe even a little more saturation on this would really, really help define this image even more. But overall, I mean, really interestingly done. Definitely meets the topic, so we'll go 7.
Big round wheel and circular gauges.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I'm used to, I do a workshop in the airplane and automotive graveyard, which somebody mentioned before, and these cars don't look like this. They look like much much worse for the wear. So it's kind of interesting with this. But one thing I know from trying to photograph these dashboards and steering wheels and things in cars in general is it's really hard to kind of get the composition to work. And it's like, you've got like the steering wheel, which is great, and then you've got the circle of the gauges in the background, but the steering wheel is kind of cutting into the gauges, and so on. And then it's like, it's like it's very, very hard to make an image like this work. And it's just there's just a lot of distraction going on in the background here. And that would be, you could blur that all out and make it just about that really interesting steering wheel, which I've never seen one like that before. Um, kind of work like that because you really work the chrome very nicely too. I mean, there's a lot of nice reflections and shadows and highlights and everything in the chrome. But really just knocking that entire background and out of focus, I think would really make this image um, less busy and really create more of a composition here. I'm going to go 6 on this.
You said 6
Yep.
blocks.
Really interestingly done. When you think of geometric shapes, you think of order, right? It's like everything needs to be in nice order, and yet these aren't, and yet they work. And they definitely meet the topic and everything. And I like the fact that I mean, I don't know if this is the way they are, or whether you kind of left some of the color in and took some of the color out. Um, it doesn't matter. I mean, this would work well as a black and white, but it works well the way you've done it as well. Again, on this, I would definitely want to see a bit more contrast. If you really put some more contrast in this thing would pop like crazy because it is just such an interesting image to look at. The other thing is you've got a little block on the left-hand side. I would crop that out, the one that's kind of not working with the rest of the blocks. It's almost like there's like a something laying on top of these things. That's really simple to kind of crop that one out. Um, but it's still nice. We'll go 7 on this.
View of a highway from plane or veins of a leaf.
Well, if there were cars, I'd say maybe it's a highway, but I'm going to go with leaf on this one. Um, it's definitely interesting geometric shape and everything. It's just that the only thing with this is that there's not a lot that's in focus here. Um, Here it's just I tell you I've done this kind of image a lot and I've judged this image a lot, and it's really kind of hard to kind of get it, particularly if you're hand holding and you're outside, is to get the depth of field right. And here something like this really needs to be all in focus. Otherwise it's just because there's just like a little teeny tiny bit in the middle that's like really sharp. But I mean, all the textures and the fuzziness of the little hairs on the leaf and everything, they're just like so interesting to look at, and everything. But yeah, there's just too much softness in this image. I'm gonna have to go 6 on this one.
Ovals.
So really nice. Although I mean, I would debate you on the fact is whether these are actually ovals or not, but I don't really care. Um, they're really neat. I don't know if this is like Cholula glass or not. Kind of looks like it, but I'm not sure. It's just really neat, and you really got this. Nicely done. The composition is really interesting with this. It's kind of your eye just sort of wanders around and wanders around, wanders around, and it kind of enters into, goes to the middle. But because that one piece of glass in the middle doesn't have a lot of detail in it, you kind of go back out again. My only suggestion would be the lower right-hand corner where it's almost like the glass is kind of going almost black. I would lighten that a little bit. It's a little bit of a distraction. It kind of draws your eye down there in the corner, but the rest of it is just really just bright and colorful, which is really neat. Here again, I think a little more contrast and definitely more saturation would work. I know this is probably the way it looked, but sometimes increasing the saturation on something like that really makes this pop. But really nicely done. I'll go 7 on this.
Okay, you have 8 sevens. We can go through them, 7, 8, or 9.
Okay, got it.
Okay, geometric shapes, intermediate B, circles and triangles.
7 on this.
Triangles,
8.
diamonds,
8.
Stonehenge,
Uh, 7 on this.
MG circles and hexagons.
7.
X marks the spot.
Go 9 on this one.
Blocks,
8.
ovals.
8.
And that's it. All right, so we have 1 9, so that automatically gets
First
first
place.
place. And then out of the 4 8s, if you would pick a second and third.
Be
Okay.
happy to. Yep.
And here we have them all. And let me go through them for you. Triangles,
Yeah. So okay. So
diamonds, blocks, and ovals.
yeah. So third place will be the last image of the glass, the ovals.
This is
And,
third place.
yep. And second place will be the blocks, the image that's next to it.
This one is second place.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so second place. That's third place. Okay. View contest. Geometric shapes, intermediate B. Third place goes to Jerry Morelli. Third place. Nice job, Jerry. Ovals. Second place, Jerry Morelli. Blocks. Nice going. And first place, Ed Edelson. X marks the spot. Nice going, Ed. Okay. And now we'll get on to geometric shapes. If I can find it, we have
Okay.
8. We have 18 photos
Okay.
in this category in the advanced. Okay, I'll go through them quickly for you.
Okay.
Geometric shapes A. Santorini, gym bench legs. O. Great. Selena over the moon. Forbidden City. Circles in a playground. Canopy and shadows of rectangles. Shapes. Parking lot geometry. Erector set. So many shapes. Looks like a face. Street stones and squares and rectangles. Many colors. Street geometry. Good morning sunshine. Colorful cylinders, or maybe just straws. Nature's bounty. And that's it. Okay, Richard,
All righty, let's go.
here we go. Santorini.
Okay, this is just so simply beautiful. I've seen photos. I don't know if it's from here, this particular town, or whether it's similar architecture, but this is just really just perfectly composed, really nicely processed. I mean, the tonality of this, the composition of this, and against the blue sky, just really makes this whole thing work just so gorgeously. Definitely seven on this.
Gym bench legs.
I got to admire people who see this kind of stuff and like say and find an image here. I mean, it's like really just uh it's just very interesting. There's just like it's kind of like one of these images where you could put like you could title this Count the Triangles and probably everybody would come up with a different number of triangles because there's probably so many triangles here. It's just really neatly done. Um, just little minor nitpick here on this particular image, but the um, um, the edge of the bench or whatever that goes out the lower left, if you kind of cropped it up so that was right on the bottom of that was like right on the edge, I think would be, that would really kind of sort of complete the design. And it would make that one little area even more triangular in the lower right hand corner, which is a significant part of the image. And then the other thing is just to provide a little more separation between the leg that goes right down the middle of the image and the base in the background that it crosses. It's almost like they're the exact same color. And again, with a little, you're just creating a little shadow back there, detail, darkening that a little bit would make that kind of separate a little bit more. Unless your intent was not to have that there, in which case that also works. It's just the way I'm viewing it, but still, definitely a nice. Interesting image here. We'll give a seven on this.
Oh, great.
Um, great title. Um, it's nicely done. Definitely meets the topic. I like the idea that everything's so geometric, but yet then you get to the stone wall, and that's kind of random and stuff like that. Really kind of gives you a sense of place. I do wish you backed up a little bit and we got to see more of that arch pattern in the stone. I think that would really kind of make the image even stronger. But still, nicely done. Definitely nice light, nice color. Here, the muted color kind of works more so than like if there was even more contrast and more saturation. I think the muted color here definitely it enhances this image quite a bit. We'll go seven on this one.
Selena over the moon.
Um, Definitely interestingly done. I think you kind of work this flower to make it into something a little more abstract, but it's definitely very, very geometric. I like the kind of glow behind it, and then the blue and the way you work the blue into the flower itself. It's really kind of almost geometric color as well as geometric shape, which makes it kind of interesting. And it almost looks like whatever the blue petals are, almost looks like liquid coming out of the middle of the flower, pouring over the rest of the flower. So it's almost like it's not a flower anymore. It's almost like some kind of weird geometric abstract. But nicely done. We'll go seven on this.
Forbidden City.
Um, It's not. I mean, definitely the beauty of this architecture and the detail is just amazing. You can imagine the amount of work that went into doing this, and then the amount of work that goes into maintaining it, which would be really just amazing. So there's a couple of things here, though, that you know, it's it almost I almost wish it was composed so that maybe you just had those three um, squares in the middle and then framed it around that because the other ones are kind of, they're sort of distracting. The fact that they're not, the ones that are in the bottom are in shadow. You can't really see what they are. The ones on the top, you see them, but you don't see enough of them to make them be interesting. And because they're bright spots, they kind of lead you out of the image. Excuse me. The other thing I think, I mean, I've never been to the Forbidden City, so I can't say, but it looks to me like there's like a bow, kind of like a distortion from the lens, where these straight lines, the horizontal lines are kind of curvy. And that's something that's easy to fix in like with Lightroom or even Photoshop where you just like kind of do a lens correction on that. It's like usually just kind of just clicking on the little thing and it fixes it immediately. But I would like crop that a little bit more and fix the distortion of the lens. And you could definitely, definitely, it's like a beautiful piece of work. But I'm gonna go six on that because of all the distracting elements.
Circles in a playground.
Again, interestingly seen, how you people see photos there, and I would just walk right by this and not even notice it. Really, it's very nicely done. I like the sort of yin yang look of the round things and everything. I like the curved shadow in the background there, kind of makes the curves, the circular shapes and shadows kind of work. The only thing is that, and I know you're there where you are, but the um the lower left-hand corner, the shape isn't as defined, and I think that kind of sort of does away with it. I mean, that would be again if you're open to it, doing something to get rid of the shadow and kind of either cloning or using an AI generative fill or something like that to kind of fill that in with a non-shadow area, but make it look more like the rest of that kind of red sort of area that I know it's kind of like the soft stuff so that the kids don't fall and hurt themselves with that. And even kind of cloning out the leaves, I think would help too and make it more geometric. But still, all in all, nicely done and nicely seen. So I'm going to go seven on this.
Canopy and shadows of rectangles.
Yeah, so I like the idea of this. You've got that canopy up there, which is, a bunch of rectangles or diamonds, depending upon how you're looking at it. And then the shadow, because the sun's like directly overhead, are falling on the awning and the everything else, the pavement there. The only thing is that it's I wish we saw more of that awning, and it would almost be nice if the problem is, and I get your concept of it, but maybe if you just sort of photographed the awning and made that your subject would be better. I mean, I like that you saw the shadows here, but with the distracting element of what's underneath the awning, the metal awning or whatever that is, as opposed to the thing that's up there with the diamonds or squares. Um, that is kind of what's in you just have a bunch of random chairs. There's a sign and some plants, and there's like half of a potted plant on the left. It just that kind of adds a distraction and it breaks up the geometry of your geometric shapes. And it becomes sort of overpowering and even it becomes more than when you add it all up, it's more than half the image. So I'm gonna have to go six on this one.
Shapes.
Yeah, so this is obviously you saw something and photographed it. I mean, I'm hoping this is part of something and you pulled this composition out of another, piece of art. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that's definitely what you did. And it's nicely done. The design of it is neat. There's a lot of balance. I mean, you really only basically got four colors going on, or maybe five because you got gray going on, but they're all nicely balanced and nicely handled. There's a lot of neat shapes here to look at and so on. And it really is interesting because there's almost a 3D sort of aspect of this, but not I don't know, it's interesting, almost an MC Escher kind of thing because some things look 3D, some don't, but yeah, really neatly, kind of interestingly done. So we'll go with a 7 on this.
Parking lot geometry.
Really interesting piece. I mean, when I saw this, I'm like, yeah, there's another one of those. Like, I would never see this, but I mean, every now and then I do see stuff like this. But this is really, really neatly done. I like this. I like the fact that you went black and white because I would imagine, the curve might be a different color than the lines. And by doing that, you sort of like simplified the image a bit. The one thing with this, I would definitely put a little more contrast in this. The more contrast you do in this, it would definitely really make this image pop more. And you also have a vignette around the edge, it looks like. I would get rid of that. I don't think you need it. I think the bold shape of this image, particularly the triangle in the lower left and triangle in the upper right, really kind of make this thing work on its own. And I think the vignette kind of sort of takes away from the shapes. But still, nicely done. Let's go with a 7 on this.
Erector set.
Um, I don't remember my Erector set being made out of wood, but whatever. This is a great idea for an image, and it's nicely composed. However, the light is really working against you on this. This image in shadow, where there weren't these bright highlights on the little cross pieces, the horizontal cross pieces, and even on some of the, you have the one right in the middle, the one sort of circular end that has like a little bit of shadow on it and highlighted kind of that totally blows the symmetry and the geometricness of it, even though it's this little thing. But this would be, I mean, if you're into this kind of stuff, go back and revisit this thing and look at it in a way that, you're trying to eliminate, definitely not having it done in harsh light and look at the little things like you have those horizontal wooden pieces in the lower right that should kind of not be in the image and could have been cropped out and everything. But this harsh light really sort of messes up your composition, I think, a bit. So, even though it's like, I would definitely, if you have access to this thing, I would definitely play with this some more. I'm going to go 6 on this.
So many shapes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like the idea of this. Yeah, it's kind of like, when you think geometric shapes, you think abstract, right? So kind of like finding an abstract within something that's not. But here you're doing, not, it's enough architecture so you could call it an architectural shot. And I like the idea that, and it probably was the intent of the original architect who designed this, but it's like you go from arch to arch and then there's another arch. And it just really kind of is a very interesting sort of thing with that. Here, though, you can kind of see that your camera was pointed up a little bit, and you can see the vertical lines are a little bit converging together. Um, and everything. And I kind of wish there was a little bit more visible above those things all that go across the top. The shield and all the other stuff that's to the left and right of it. Be a little bit more because they get kind of cut off. This is one of those things when you're doing an architectural image like this. It's like where do you start and where do you stop? And it's just kind of like working. And if you have other images of this, or you can go back and photograph this again, kind of revisit that idea because I mean, you caught nice light here and everything, but I think we really straighten out those verticals and definitely, look to see if we can get a little bit more above the top of this image. but it's still nice enough. I mean, the idea. I will give it a 7.
Looks like a face.
Definitely does. It's really interesting. It's the one thing about this. I mean, I really like it. Okay, and I like the it's kind of interesting. It's like very blue and very structured, and then you've got sort of these random trees at the background. It's almost like I wish, you know, I could see the tree and not necessarily the foreground of the foreground and not necessarily the tree. But unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get this image because of the angle um, of it. Because in order to make it look like a face, in order to make actually the idea of it work, you really need to photograph it at this angle as opposed to more head on or something like that. Um, I get your kind of challenge here. Maybe cropping it in a little bit more might work, particularly crop off the sides and maybe a little bit more down from the top might help with this a little bit. But you got kind of this like sort of thing going on. However, I do think this is an interesting enough image to give it a 7 and kind of get it into the next round because it is kind of a neat idea and it definitely if you do that thing whatever they call it that begins with P about faces and if you can re-enter this again, you've got that one too. So it's kind of neatly done and definitely very well seen.
Street stones in squares and rectangles.
Um, so I like this. I mean, I think it's really, the idea of it is, it's kind of like a map, I guess, of Santiago, and you got the river and the map, and that's really neat. And I like the shadows of the people on the left, but the shadows of the people on the right, which might just be the one of those shadows, might just be the photographer. Um, I think they kind of don't. They're kind of more less defined. It's almost like you can't see that they're actually people. And then when this map also, it's kind of seeing more of it would it be good too. And I know that's kind of, it might be hard because of the size and where you are, and obviously there's other people there, so it's kind of difficult to photograph in something like this. However, it's just, again, when you do this, it's got to be, you're essentially doing an artistic challenge here and you've got to kind of make the art work. And here, unfortunately, I think you've got, particularly that with the shadows in the foreground and everything, are really kind of working against what you're trying to do here, as well as kind of cutting off the map on the left side and the right side as well. So I'm going to go 6 on this one.
Many colors.
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, so definitely geometric. Uh, Definitely a lot of colors, definitely a lot of shapes. Obviously it's sort of hand done, so you can kind of see the fact that you don't have perfect, all those little like whatever those like almost looks like little flower buds that are green. They're none of no two look alike and everything, so it's like that. Uh, you are photographing this at an angle, and you have a depth of field issue on the right, where if you look, there's the whatever those things are, ropes or whatever, brass or whatever that stuff is out of focus. And with something like this, it really all needs to be in focus. I mean, 100%. And the way you get that, if you're photographing under difficult lighting, if you're in a shop or something like that, and you really can't like whip out your flash or do a bunch of light or something like that, is to really photograph this head on so that you're not photographing at an angle and then you're minimizing what the depth of field needs are. But I mean, it's a really interesting idea, and whatever this thing is obviously very, very intricately done and interesting. But that little out of focus area up there, on the right hand side, is just really kind of affecting the overall composition and what's going on in this image. So I'm gonna have to go 6 on this.
Street geometry.
Very simple. You know, it's very it's kind of like you made this work because I mean if you see the light, you're like literally, you know, it's like what, 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you know, the sun's not quite overhead, but I think it's kind of neat, and you made it work. I mean, the shadow of the ball and the yeah, the way it's lit, it almost looks like a half moon, and then you got the shapes in the background. Just really, really interestingly done and nicely handled. Here again, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's my monitor or something, but some of these black and whites look like they could use a bit more contrast. And the same thing with this because, um, you know, because it's really, really geometric. You know, a little bit more contrast, particularly in your in the lighter areas. The darker areas are fine. I mean, particularly the shadow of that little ball of the ball. It's like there's enough detail in there, so I wouldn't go any darker on that, but maybe just bring up some of your whites and highlights a little bit more. But still, nice, very interesting image, and definitely very creative. So we'll go 7 on this one.
Good morning, sunshine.
Um, Again, one of those images where you see this stuff and it's just like, wow, you know, I mean, whether you were like looking for this for the competition or whether you just, you know, like you saw this and photographed this years ago and like said, like, well, you know, this will work if we ever have something like this, you know, a topic like this. It works really well. I think it's composed very, very nicely. Um, there's a teeny, this is a little nitpick. There's a teeny tiny bit of the three windows on the upper left. There's a little bit of something in one of those on the edge of one of those windows. It could be the edge of the window or something outside. You just pull the crop in just a little bit would really help. But you know, that's such a minor nitpick that it really doesn't distract from the image at all. And the shadows are really neat. And the fact that there's, you know, different colors here because of the color of the glass and the color of the marble as opposed to what the texture is on the wall and so on. And it's really neat. And even the caulking really kind of helps this image work. The caulking of where the window's caulked into the wall just really kind of makes the whole thing work because it makes it look real as opposed to abstract. So it's kind of like an abstract within reality, which is kind of cool. So we'll go 7 on this.
Colorful cylinders, or maybe just straws.
Well, they're definitely geometric and they're definitely, I mean, I don't know if this is the way you pulled them out of the box or whether you arranged the color scheme. It's it's a random color scheme, but it almost looks contrived. Like you know, it's like if you told me you spent 3 hours like organizing these things, I would believe you. But it just seems to work out really well. I mean, where the way the colors are located, they just look like they all belong where they are, and it's really neat. And I like the fact that the angle that you did this at, and the whole thing's kind of coming in at a slight diagonal. Your foreground and background are, you know, very dark and very simple. So that makes it work. It looks like this is all nice and sharp and everything too. Um, but you know, really a very interestingly done image. So I definitely go 7 on this one.
Nature's bounty.
Um, there's so much geometry in this thing, and it's just really neat and color and everything, which is great. Um, I just the whatever that plastic thing is, which is I guess the edge of a bin or something like that, really kind of sort of, and it really takes up about a quarter of the image. So it really is. I kind of wish you kind of zoomed in a little bit more, or got a little closer, and eliminated that, and just worked with the top part of this thing. I don't know if it's some kind of lettuce or cabbage or something like that because definitely, you know, it's really neat and the background is really neat too. But whatever's that foreground element there being crooked and just taking up so much room and really kind of not matching the geometry of the green thing, it just doesn't. Yeah, I just there's just too much of a distraction there, and I'm gonna have to go with a 6 on that. But play with the crop on that as well, and you might have something.
Okay, that's it. We have 12 sevens. And if you could give us a 7, 8,
Or 9.
and
Yep.
or 9.
Yep.
Okay, geometric shapes, advanced A. Well, what happened? What happened? Okay. Santorini,
9 on this one.
gym bench legs.
Um, I'm gonna have 9 on this one too.
Oh, great.
7.
Zelina over the moon.
I'm gonna go 8 on this one.
Circles in a playground.
Um, 7.
Shapes.
Um, I'll go 8 on this one.
Parking lot geometry.
Um, go 8 on this one, but more contrast. This would definitely be a 9.
So many shapes.
7.
Looks like a face.
7 on this.
Street geometry.
Um, go 8 on this.
Good morning sunshine.
9.
Colorful cylinders or maybe just straws.
I love the title. 8.
That's it. Okay, we've got well, we've got a first, second, and third. That's what you have to pick.
Yeah. I did not do that on purpose.
You just want to get out of here.
Nah, nah. I never do that.
All right, we've got Santorini, gym bench legs, and good morning sunshine.
Okay, gym bench legs are going to be third.
This one,
Yep. The one to the right of it is second.
and then this one is first.
Yep. Process of elimination, right?
Okay. Okay.
Left side.
Geometric shapes advanced. Third place, gym bench legs, Bobby Greenfield. Nice one, Bob. Second place, Bobby again. Good morning sunshine. Nice shot, Bobby. And first place, Dan Sudberg, Santorini. Nice going, guys.
Well
Okay.
done. A lot of great work.
And what do I do now? I go
Stop.
stop share, right?
Yep.
Stop share. Like Sonny and share. Okay.
Yep.
And
Oh,
that's it. Okay, Dan. Thank you. By the way, Richard.
thank
No,
you, Rich.
yeah, thanks for having me. It was really a bunch of interesting photographs there.
Yeah, enjoyed many of your comments. I hopefully they're helpful to others. That's why we like other more members to participate in competitions because there's a lot of good critique where people can learn from it.
Yeah, I found the comments very helpful.
Well, thank you. Definitely,
Gary,
my
Gary,
pleasure.
you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
Rich, I'll probably send you another email. I did send one. I don't know what happened. It maybe got lost about asking about if our club wanted to do a private tour or something, what you would do, a photo photo walk at the I think we decided we liked the graveyard, the junkyard.
Yeah, we could definitely I could definitely arrange something with that.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, just yeah, email me again and we'll do it. Would you want to
Uh-huh.
do something? I'm pretty packed this fall. Would you want